Welcome to Daily Wire Backstage. I'm Jeremy Boring, joined by Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Matt Walsh, and tuning in remotely because we allowed him to go on vacation for the first time in 9 years, Ben Shapiro. This election is pivotal. I'm sure you've been watching the amazing events that have been unfolding for the last 2 weeks, and it's been kind of an amazing time, both in the history of the company and in the history of the country and the history of our company. We've been bringing you more live coverage than ever in the entire 9-year history of the Daily Wire, and that's because the events that are unfolding all around us are truly monumental. I feel like we've lived through like 5 chapters of a history book in the last 14 days. We're able to do that important work because of our Daily Wire Plus members. We bring you the truth every day, unfiltered, and we could use more help. So please, if you're not a member today, go to dailywire.com right now. You can use promo code FIGHT to get 47% off of your annual membership. Fight because Donald Trump said, fight, fight, fight. 47% because he may be the 47th president if Joe Biden doesn't just step out of the office tomorrow, in which case Kamala will become the 47th president. We will change our promo code to 48%, and Donald Trump will have to burn all that merch that he spent money building and selling over the last several weeks. That could actually happen, people. Yeah. We are through the looking glass. Everything has gone nuts. Members can ask questions during the broadcast tonight at dailywire.com. The deal ends tomorrow, so please head over to dailywire.com. We really do appreciate our members, and they are the reason that we're able to do the kind of coverage that we've been doing these last couple of weeks. Holy crap. We've been at this a while. We've been talking about politics for years now. Nothing like this has happened in ever.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this is like Civil War levels of, well, maybe not Civil War levels of insanity, but I don't know if since the Civil War, this kind of insanity around an election
since the 60s
has taken place. Even in the 60s.
No, because they were popping off our guys.
But just think, the president...
You kill one Kennedy.
The president who has just said that he will not run for re-election was around in the 1860s and saw what happened to Abraham Lincoln and saw Reconstruction. And so he's living through this now. Our friend Bridget Fedesi tweeted out, she said, you know, people are debating whether or not Biden is alive or dead, and it's like the third weirdest thing to happen in the last 5 days.
We have a major announcement. And for the people who watch this show routinely, you know that 2 Backstages ago, the Daily Wire marketing team actually sent out marketing materials publicly that said, please tune in for the God King's major announcement. But they forgot to tell me what the major announcement was. And so as we started going through the show, we got to the part where the members could ask questions, and people were saying, what's the big announcement? What's the big announcement? And I don't know. There was no major announcement. Tonight, they have also been marketing that we have a huge announcement. And as it turns out, we do. It's really a watershed moment for us here at the company. We want to share it with you, but it's the kind of announcement that's so big, we're not going to start the show with it. Instead, we're going to use this nifty countdown clock. And 1 hour hence, we will be bringing you the biggest announcement that the Daily Wire has made, certainly in 2024, and one of the biggest announcements in the history of the company. So please stick around for the next hour. We'll talk through the most depressing and exciting political moments of our lifetime that have been unfolding all around us, and then we'll bring you this huge Daily Wire Plus announcement. Okay, so since the last time we were all together, we had a president. His name was Joe Biden. We loved him very much. We had a vice president. Her name was Kamala Harris. She was kind of funny. Yeah. She was charming in all of Hillary's worst behaviors and laughs, but with none of her accomplishments kind of way. And we had Donald Trump, the presumptive nominee at that time of the party, and everything seemed like it was just a normal, crazy election in the era of Trump. Since then, they literally put a bullet through Donald Trump. And the president of the United States lost a debate so badly that he decided he could no longer be his party's nominee for president. And he resigned by a letter, which he obviously did not personally sign, which was released on a platform that he says is the home of misinformation and disinformation and should be boycotted by all the advertisers. And then we just didn't see him for days and days and days. We finally did see him today get out of a car, shuffle past the press, mumble.
With his frozen arm.
Mumble a few words. And then I have to say, he took the big boy stairs up to Air Force One, which the last time we saw him, they were loading him in the belly through the short stairs. So he's apparently doing a little bit better, and we're supposed to hear from him in an Oval Office address tomorrow. But truly, like the craziest 14 days in American politics. Ben, what do you make of all of it?
I mean, that's a big question. It's almost hard to know where to begin with all of this because I feel like we're all 7 years older in the last 3 weeks. Yeah. I mean, it's one crazy event after another. I think we should probably start from the state of the race as it currently is, because we can get into Joe Biden dropping out. What does that mean for the country and all the rest? But I think that we should start with the state of the race, which is now Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. This is a different race. It doesn't mean that Donald Trump doesn't have the advantage. Donald Trump obviously does have the advantage at this point in time. If you look at the polling data, he's running somewhere between 1 and 2 points in the national polling ahead of Kamala Harris. With all of that said, obviously he's no longer running against a dead person, and pretty much everybody had been expending their mental energy on the fact that Joe Biden is senile and incapable of holding his office. Now Kamala Harris is in there, and this race looks kind of like the dynamic that the race had before that first debate, before Joe Biden completely fell apart, which means that Donald Trump has an advantage, but it's less of a massive advantage than sort of a slight advantage, and you're going to see the most irritating media coverage you've ever seen over the course of the next 3.5 months, trying to whip everybody into a frenzy over the least charming candidate since ever. I mean, she's way less charming than Hillary Clinton. She's way less interesting than Hillary Clinton. She's way more annoying than Hillary Clinton. She runs terrible campaigns. She was the literally most radical senator in the United States Senate as of 2019. She was the border czar, who has presided over the worst border crisis in American history. And of course, there's the cackle. So, do I think that she's capable of winning? Listen, anybody who's on the ticket is capable of winning. Do I think that she's going to win in the current situation? I think that she certainly has an uphill road. But the fact that the Democrats had to pull her last minute demonstrates just how desperate they were and just how powerful Trump's campaign has been so far.
Ben, we heard almost none of that. but
I actually heard it.
You look authoritative. Like I'm just looking at the monitor. You use your hands very effectively.
No, I'll let you know. Ben was talking about how handsome I am and how nice my jacket looks tonight. It's all totally agree, Ben. It also shows you the fact that they would pull Biden at the last minute and throw Harris in shows you not only how desperate they were, but how they will do whatever it takes.
Yes. Yeah.
They will in 2020, they will advocate locking the country down and change all the election rules if they think it's going to help them. They will toss this man who has given the majority of his life to this party, who has always been a yes man, a company man, total empty suit, changes his views based on what they want him to do. They will pick him up. Kamala will throw him under one of those big yellow school buses that she loves so much and let it run him right over. And so we shouldn't underestimate how formidable that political force is.
No, Willie Brown says, and he knows Kamala. He knows. I don't know if he knows
biblical sense.
I don't know if he knows her biblically, but he, at a minimum, knows her Book of Mormon. Like it's.
It took like 7 minutes for Willie Brown to come up in the conversation.
Self-censor. So he has said all along that she would be president.
Yes, he did.
That she is an amazing political tactician.
Yep.
He says, and here she is. And she has in fact found herself in a position, never having received a single popular vote in a Democratic primary. She finds herself her party's nominee to be president. And as we learned in 2016, if you are the nominee, you can win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm a little less sanguine even than Ben. I think the major political shift in the last week is that it was Donald Trump's race to lose. And now I think that it actually is Kamala's race to lose. In other words, it's not that I don't think Donald Trump can beat Kamala Harris. It's that I don't think he is beating Kamala Harris. There's a huge wave of new voter enthusiasm, completely changes the game. It's unfair. They basically got to the last inning of the game, realized that their opponent was far, far ahead, and then they just called a complete reset, fundamentally changed the rules of the game, fundamentally changed the competition. But that is the reality that now is before us. And Trump is going to have to, and not just Trump, everyone who wants Trump to be the next president is going to have to actually do the work to get him elected.
And we can't underestimate. I think sometimes we don't want to underestimate the threat Kamala Harris poses, but we also want to underestimate the ability of the corporate media to set a narrative. And sometimes we like to wish cast and tell ourselves that corporate media is irrelevant, but they're not. And the corporate media, we saw what happened when they, along with the donor class and the Democrat elites, decided they want to get rid of a sitting president. They did it in 3 weeks.
That's right.
So if they set out right now and they decide that, you know what, Kamala Harris is a transformational candidate, she's a once-in-a-generation political figure, she's going to be the first female president, she's all these things. None of that is, well, first female president is true, but the rest of it isn't. But if they decide they want to convince the public of that, then they have a real ability to do that for a lot of people. And I think also the emotional blackmail tactic it has proven pretty powerful. And so, one of the messages to the American public will be, we had a chance at a female president in 2016, and you bigots didn't let it happen. Are you really going to, the second time in a row, are you going to let Donald Trump beat the second female potential president?
You've convinced me. Trump's going to win.
I have to say, though, that first, there's one thing that we should actually admit up front. From the moment that bullet missed Donald Trump, from the moment he was all right, this has been the most entertaining couple of days in politics that I have ever seen. If you love politics, and it's added to by the Democrats' soulless coup of this guy, engineered obviously behind the scenes by Barack Obama with a fine Italian hand. And it's so much more entertaining than even Trump, because Trump fires you on a Jumbotron. You're in Yankee Stadium, it's like Rex Tillerson, you're fired. Kiss the girl next to you, you're out of here. But Obama has that Chicago way of getting rid of you, which is just entertaining.
That Chicago way of making sure that you still win, even though no one has voted for you.
Yeah, I have to say, though, that Kamala does have some strengths that actually are strengths. She hates Jews, and she kills babies, and she bails out rioters. And those are things that the Democrat base not only likes, but they will make it less likely that the Democrat convention is overrun by pro-Hamas Nazi protesters.
That's right.
Yeah.
Although if she actually leans into the... Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, I know the latency is bad, and so I'm chiming in from literally a different state. But I will say that I am maybe the optimist in the room, or not in the room, as the case may be, which is always a shock. There are a few different factors here that make me a little more optimistic than you guys. One is people already have seen Kamala Harris. She ran the worst presidential campaign in modern history in 2020. So bad that she dropped out of the race before she even got to her home state of California. She loses her staff like nobody's business. She's just not a competent candidate. She's never run a truly competitive race. The only competitive race that she ever ran was for Attorney General in the state of California, and she won that one by 1 point over a Republican in the state of California. And so the idea that she's going to be able to put together a credible campaign, I think that's very difficult. She's very, very online. I think a lot of the enthusiasm you're seeing right now is about Biden getting out, not about Kamala Harris. So that means it's sort of an ersatz enthusiasm. It's the kind of enthusiasm that you are forced to feel with a gun to your head every time Beyonce brings out an album. Doesn't mean the album's good, but it doesn't mean that you have to pretend that you're enthusiastic about it for the next 5 to 10 minutes. And then, you forget it ever happened. I think there's some of that going on with Kamala Harris right now. I think there's something else that has happened in the interim that has changed the race pretty significantly. And that is a permission structure was created by Joe Biden so that people could actually say the thing out loud that they haven't been able to say for nearly a decade, which is, I will vote for Donald Trump. This has been a major obstacle for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020, was the social censure that attached to even the statement that you would vote for Donald Trump. And now you're seeing very prominent figures like an Elon Musk say that they'll vote for Trump, like a Mark Zuckerberg say nice things about Trump. The opening that Joe Biden created by staying in the race and by so clearly being out of his mind, by so clearly being senile, allowed many people to say the thing. And once they've said the thing, it's a little easier to say the thing again, and it's harder to unsay the thing. Once Donald Trump becomes a serious candidate in your mind, well, then he's a serious candidate in your mind, and Kamala Harris coming in isn't going to reshift that. And so you've seen some of the lines that she's retailed over the course of, say, the last couple of days. And these lines are very weak. She started with the Project 2025 stuff. That ain't going nowhere. She started with the I'm going to prosecute the case against Donald Trump. I mean, you're going to do it. I mean, the DOJ is literally doing it in 2 separate jurisdictions. And you have Fani Willis doing it in Georgia, and you have New York doing it. Like, you're going to be you're right. We've never heard a case against Donald Trump. We need you, the world's worst prosecutor, to come in and prosecute Donald Trump. And now she's doing we're not going to the past, we're going to the future nonsense, which, I mean, I have to break it to her. We're all going to the future. We have no choice. There's no way to get back to the past.
I just hope that they don't find out that Donald Trump ever had a misdemeanor marijuana possession conviction, because if he did...
Yeah, can I say...
He's not black, it's fine. She'll never come after him. He's white. It's cool.
Two things to what Ben said. First of all, Kamala Harris has never won an election, a campaign that she had to run by herself because she's not competent enough. But Kamala Harris isn't running for president. She's not by herself. She's running along with the corporate media, with the donors, with the dem elites lining up behind her. She's never had that before. And when you have that, it just does change the game pretty considerably. And the second point is, I think that, just to take the pessimistic view I'm going to outflank Ben on pessimism, I think that the line about that she had at the when she was giving the speech to the campaign workers about, I was a prosecutor and I went after abusers and I went after scam artists and I know guys like Donald Trump. Yeah, the Donald Trump part of that isn't very compelling. We've heard it a million times. But and I don't know if this is the case, but if that is an indication that she is actually going to try to run as the tough as nails prosecutor who's gone out there and found the bad guys and put them in jail. If she's going to run as that Kamala Harris, which is mostly a fantasy, but if she's going to run as that rather than the Kamala Harris that bailed rioters out of prison, that could be a problem for the Republicans. And the reason why it's a problem for Republicans is that I'm not confident the Republicans aren't dumb enough to respond to that by trying to outflank Kamala to the left on the crime issue. We've already seen some of this. About how, Kamala Harris, she put young black men in prison and that sort of thing. We're seeing that from Republicans. And so the real risk here is that Republicans give up the crime issue, which is so easy, such a winner, that they give it up because they think it's a vulnerability for Trump.
She is really vulnerable. I'm actually on Ben's side about this. I think that I would rather see Trump run against Biden because Biden has passed away. But I think, so this is it's worse than that. They're not as bad. But she's the border czar. Remember the border czar? She's never been to the border. And
she's never been to Europe.
and she was part of the conspiracy of lies that I think has undermined the media in a big way. She came out and said, I saw Joe Biden every day. He was great. Nobody was sharper. He was so sharp. She was lying to the people. And there are Democrats still. Look, a lot of people are going to turn out, as they did in the last election, to vote against Donald Trump. There's no question about that. They always do. But still, she has been really deceptive, openly dishonest in a way that we all have the receipts. We all can see what she did. And that just, to me, undermines her in a very deep way. Plus, Biden is a failed president. His policies have failed.
I feel good about the polls. I share your concern, Matt, because right now, Republicans could hit Kamala in two different ways. We have all the clips. The one is where she's making fun of the people who say we need to build more schools, not more jails. That's prosecutor, tough on crime Kamala.
Right.
That's the one that some Republicans in a misguided way are focusing on. But there's also Kamala talking to Stephen Colbert in 2020 saying the BLM riots are going to continue and they should continue. Yeah. There's the Kamala who bails the rioters out of prison directly. So obviously that's the one to focus on. That's the one.
You need to set the narrative that is the Kamala.
That's the real Kamala, yes. But if you look right now...
also...
Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
You have to look at the state by state here. So I was just going to say, look at the state by state. So one of the things that they've been doing with the political analysis is saying that the map for Joe Biden was basically win the blue wall states or he's done, right? He's going to lose Georgia, Arizona. He was going to lose Nevada. And they're saying that, well, maybe for Kamala Harris, the idea is that she can lose some of those blue wall states and she can win back, say, Georgia or Arizona or Nevada. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I think that the gains that she is going to make with black voters are going to be lost with rural white voters, because those are voters that Biden was doing better with than she was doing. So they've been saying, well, she's going to shift her strategy to the Sun Belt. She's not going to win Georgia. Stacey Abrams couldn't win Georgia. Why would Kamala Harris be able to win Georgia? She's not going to win Arizona. Kamala Harris is not wildly popular with Hispanics. There's a poll that came out that shows that she's running dead even with Donald Trump among Hispanics. Gretchen Whitmer already, I think, gave away the game. She was asked the other day whether she would take the VP slot on Kamala's ticket, and she said she would not. Okay, when you're VP candidates, possible VP candidates, I mean, again, politicians are the most ambitious people in the world, like on planet Earth. And becoming VP is obviously a launch point for the presidency. And that's true on both sides of the aisle. The gaming in order to become VP is so unbelievably strong. So when Gretchen Whitmer, who's the current governor of Michigan, when she is asked, would you take the VP slot from Kamala Harris? And she says no. I think everybody should take a minute and just wonder why that is. Why is she saying no to that? I think the obvious answer is she thinks there's a pretty good shot that Kamala Harris goes down to wild defeat in 2024, and then it's Gretchen Whitmer time come 2028.
That's right.
I think it's possible the Democrats are actually thinking that way, that they're basically saying, with Kamala Harris, we end the panic, which will help the guys lower down on the ticket. Trump can only be president for one more term, so we let him come in and wreak whatever havoc, and then we clean up the next time out.
There are three big polls out right now. One of them has Kamala up. Reuters Ipsos has Kamala up by a little bit. The other two polls, I forget which they came from, did not. Trump was up by 1 in one of them, and Trump was up more significantly in the other. And CNN was talking about these two polls. So you say, okay, Trump up by 1, okay, maybe Kamala's up by a little in the Reuters Ipsos, but this is the honeymoon period. Candidates go down when they start running. Hillary looked really good in 2015. It was only when she got to the race.
But this is actually the problem. The honeymoon period usually lasts about 100 days. The election is something like 114 days.
Not in a campaign. 100 days in a campaign?
Oh, yeah. In a situation like this, we're missing the fact that she never had to face the voters. There's never been a debate. There's never been a single time where she's had to take fire from her own side.
Yep.
So for that reason, she gets to be nothing but an icon for her side. Her side never has to question whether or not they like her. They only get to judge her in comparison to Donald Trump, whom they hate. And so I think that she'll have an extended honeymoon period.
I'm not sure about that. I think, first of all, I don't think the fact that this was a coup and nobody voted for her is a big talking point, but I think it's somewhat of a talking point.
Do you know why, Drew? Do you know why, actually? I have a little secret information as to how they got Biden out of the race. And the way they did it was they gave him a beautiful, cushy Helix mattress, and he never wanted to get up again. Folks, I got to tell you about my Helix. I love it. I've had my Helix for years, and it's not just a mattress. It is a weapon in the culture war. How, you ask? Well, while the radical libs are tossing and turning, unable to sleep because they're worried about misgendering their houseplants, I'm getting the best sleep of my life. Even more important, I believe in Helix so much, I gave my little boy, right when he moved out of his crib, I gave him a Helix mattress, and he is energetic and virile as ever. Imagine this. You're lying on your customized Helix mattress, perfectly contoured to your spine, peacefully sleeping, while the rest of the world is in chaos. Suddenly you wake up refreshed, ready to tackle the day's biggest challenges, looking vibrant and sexy and ready to meet the challenges. This is the time. Right now, go to helixsleep.com. I think it's helixsleep.com. They won't give me my URL. There it is. Helix is giving you 30% off mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. That is helixsleep.com. What did I tell you? I love Helix so much, I even memorize their ad copy. helixsleep.com/Knowles. helixsleep.com/Knowles. They have a 100-night trial and a 10-year warranty, so you can sleep on it risk-free, unlike our southern border. If you don't love it, they'll actually enforce their return policy and pick it up for you. Go to helixsleep.com/Knowles. Get up to 30% off plus 2 free pillows. It is time to declare your independence from bad sleep. That's right now, helixsleep.com/Knowles. We need to take some of the savings that we get on our mattresses and pay those copywriters more money. That's some really good stuff.
That was good copy.
Wow.
It was a pretty good segue, too.
Stop it. Come on, get out of here.
You're a pro.
Come on.
So, some room to be pessimistic, some room to be optimistic. The thing that I was saying at the beginning, though, I do want to stress, which is, if everyone who says, I voted for Donald Trump, actually voted for Donald Trump, we do this funny thing in America where we use the term voted to mean support or voted in the abstract.
Yeah.
But elections aren't won by support. Elections are won by casting ballots and then sitting on the ballot box. And so I think it's going to take real shoe leather to beat Kamala Harris and to beat the Democrat machine, which is what we're really running against. And I think that Republicans run the risk of making the mistake that Hillary Clinton made and the Democrats made in 2016, where they thought, there's no way we could lose to this clown. And so they didn't show up and vote. And so they lost. And if we get cocky and think that Donald Trump can't possibly lose to Kamala Harris just because she's off-putting to us,
that would be
we will lose to her.
Complacency would be a big mistake. But optimism isn't. I have to say, in this moment, I'm less optimistic than I was when Biden, but I never expected Biden to be the candidate. I never thought he could make it to the finish line. And so, and I don't think Trump did either. I think that Trump is prepared for this. Yeah. They kept saying online, oh, Trump is shaking in his boots. First of all, Trump took a bullet, he wasn't shaking in his boots. And second of all, Trump has been expecting this. They got the first ad out within like 30 seconds of her announcement.
They were ready to pivot
totally
for
ready.
2 months.
And she's so vulnerable. She cannot hide the things she said. I mean, this is, it's a media age. They can get those tapes out there, and we can see her bailing out the rioters and saying the things she said, and that cackling.
Are you saying that she's burdened by what has been?
She's burdened by what has been. That's exactly what I'm saying.
By the way, we joke about that as though it's a really empty and sort of
ridiculous
platitude, but it actually isn't. She is actually expressing the worst philosophy I've ever heard. I mean, she is essentially
Jacobinism.
She's essentially saying
it's the same philosophy. You know, it's the same philosophy as Kylo Ren uses in The Last Jedi. It's literally that line, right? You remember? I know it's a terrible movie, so you've blocked it out from your memory, but you remember that that's literally his case. What if we blow up all the olds? And then we are unburdened by what has been, and we can be the new. She really is a nefarious and sinister character. I think that there are a few things Republicans are going to have to be very careful of with regard to attacking her. However, I think that the most obvious thing about her is that she is wildly dishonest. This is where I think, Drew, what you were saying earlier, the health cover-up actually does apply to her. And Republicans should be hitting that over and over and over again. That's like an 80-20 issue in American life. Americans believe, by like an 80-20 margin, that if you said Joe Biden was fine, you were lying to them. That goes to her radical dishonesty. And then there's her actual radicalism. She's running for president. That means that she needs, say, Pennsylvania. She came out in 2020 and said she would ban fracking outright. Okay, that should mean she loses Pennsylvania pretty much automatically. The thing Republicans cannot do is the thing that we have a temptation to do, which is to talk about the obvious ridiculousness of this person running for president in the first place. You know, I think that you're going to have to let people discover that for themselves. One area where she's different from Hillary is we had 20 years of people learning to hate Hillary Clinton, like really hate Hillary Clinton. Kamala Harris is fairly unknown to the American public. Ask most people who the vice president is, and they really, really have no clue. That said, I think that if Republicans, the temptation is going to be to say Willie Brown over and over and over, which of course is true. I mean, the first episode of the series, Scamala, available at Daily Wire Plus, 47% off with promo code 5. The first episode talks all about her relationship with Willie Brown and how that got her started in politics. But that is going to be used by her as a way of getting out the female vote. The more you say Willie Brown, the more she says you're a sexist for mentioning Willie Brown. I think the same thing is probably going to be true when we mention the simple and obvious fact that she is, in fact, a diversity pick. I mean, Joe Biden literally said that he wanted a black woman for the ticket. But if we say that he wanted a black woman for the ticket and thus she is unqualified to be vice president of the United States, then she's going to say that we're all racist. I don't think it's necessary to say all that. I think people can see it. I think people can see that she's unqualified for the vice presidency, that she's a weirdo. Like, I don't think that Donald Trump needs to call her a weirdo, for example, because every time she laughs, she's being a weirdo. I think you should focus in on the fact that she's a radical leftist who is far too far left for the American, like way more left than Joe Biden was even. And combine that with her unbelievable dishonesty, that's going to have to be the attack line.
So now there is one issue. We talk about how Kamala has thrown all these people in prison and prosecuted people. She has prosecuted a friend of mine, David Daleiden, not a black man, though they talk about how she threw all these black men in prison. David Daleiden, a white guy, but regardless of his race, he's a big pro-lifer, and she has prosecuted him for defending life and exposing the evils and crimes of the abortion industry. And she has been fanatically pro-abortion for her whole career. And I say this as someone who is entirely pro-life. There is no sunlight at all between me and the pro-life movement. But I'm recognizing that abortion has been a tricky issue for the pro-lifers at the ballot since the Dobbs decision. So does she run on abortion?
Yes.
Does she say this is going to energize the base? And how do the Republicans respond to that?
Matt?
Well, I mean, first of all, what you just mentioned, I think that is not known enough, and the Republicans need to get that information out there, because what actually happened there was Dave Daleiden and the Center for Medical Progress.
Yep.
This was, 6-7 years ago, those videos where they revealed that Planned Parenthood was killing babies and selling their parts illegally on the black market. And
James O'Keefe?
This was David Daleiden was spearheading it. And David was being prosecuted in California. I think he's still out there.
This was our first video.
He got him on.
This is the video we weren't allowed to release.
That's right, the first Daily Wire video.
That's right.
David got them on camera joking, saying, well, we're going to sell these baby parts, and, I sure would like to buy a Lamborghini.
Right.
That was one of the lines.
Wow.
And nobody in Planned Parenthood was prosecuted for that. Instead, they went after him. And I think that's kind of the answer to your question, is that should be the response. If she wants to go to abortion, then you go right to, okay, well, so you think it's okay for Planned Parenthood to sell the body parts of babies, and you prosecuted someone who exposed that. I mean, I'd like to see her, I don't think she's ever had to defend that specific case one time. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see her defend it. I think if it comes up in a debate, that's the direction you take it. We saw Trump do that against Biden a little bit when abortion came up, and he pivoted right to Democrat extremism on the issue. And I think that's what you have to do. You're not backing away and surrendering, but instead you're saying, look, we're not going to talk about the 1% of cases. We're not going to talk about the hard cases until you talk about the 99% of cases of abortion where it's used for birth control, until you talk about the fact that you support killing a fully developed infant a second before birth. Like, you answer for that, and then we could talk about these really rare cases.
That is a good strategy, but it also is true that this motivates their base. That's what I started out with. The fact that she hates Israel and she kills babies motivates the left's base, and it does mean, I think, that they have a better chance of having a quiet DNC.
Yeah.
You know?
We are 30 minutes from making one of the biggest announcements in the history of the Daily Wire. If you are watching us online, thank you. But if you are watching us as a member, we thank you all the more. If you're not a member, head over to dailywire.com right now. Use promo code FIGHT, and you will get 47% off of your Daily Wire annual membership. It is our members who make it possible for us to do this show and to do all the incredible work that we do, including the big announcement that we're going to make in 29 minutes and 36 seconds. I also want to take a minute to remind you that Backstage is going to be in front of a live audience at the Ryman Auditorium once again. It's been a couple of years since we've been able to get together at the Ryman. It's one of the truly great American venues, and we're so pleased to be going back. August 14th is the day. Tickets are on sale right now. You can get those tickets. Head over to dailywire.com. There's a link you can click or visit the Ryman Auditorium's website. We're excited to get to be in front of our fans once again. And if you remember last time, we had huge announcements like that Jordan Peterson was joining the Daily Wire, that we're doing a special project with Dennis Prager, and you can bet that we'll have big announcements this time too, as well as just have a lot of fun. And because that event is around 3 weeks from now, and if you think about what's happened in the last 3 weeks, it is truly, at this point, impossible to imagine what the state of our politics will be and how exciting will be the conversation. So please join us at the Ryman Auditorium. Again, dailywire.com to buy your tickets right now. So one thing that I want to talk about is the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. It's hard to believe how much has happened. That actually almost seems like a distant memory.
Yep.
But it was less than 3 weeks ago, and it's one of the truly amazing events of my lifetime. Is that they took a shot at the presumptive nominee and former president of the United States.
It was less than 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? I think.
Oh my gosh!
It was 10 days ago. Yeah. I mean, that's how fast
How is
time
that
is
possible?
moving.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So one of the true humiliating examples of, at a minimum, humiliating examples of the hatred of the deep state for Donald Trump and the failure of bureaucracy to do anything effectively is this shot being taken at Donald Trump, and a true turning point, I think, in his political career as well. You know, a lot of people talk about the fight, which was a amazing moment of political theatrics.
Epic.
Just Donald Trump is a true entertainer. He had presence in the moment to have this beautifully theatrical response.
And raw courage.
And raw courage. But my favorite moment is actually right before fight, when he isn't at the mic and he isn't playing to the camera yet, and he says to the Secret Service agent, "Let me get my shoe back on, son." And it's one of the most, to me, it is the most humanizing moment in this entire sort of last 8 years of Donald Trump.
When he chased the Marines
in political life.
That was without thinking. I mean, that was an amazing thing. Look, this was epic. I mean, I've never seen anything quite like it. And I think it speaks to what Ben was saying, is it made it possible to just say, you know what, like Zuckerberg said, this guy's badass, you know. Yeah. It means that he's who he pretends to be, which is a really important thing, because he's such a showman that, as Michael just said, it showed raw courage, literally under fire. And that's what he pretends to be. What he says is he's going to stand up to the deep state for us. And you looked at that and thought, I'm in. I have to tell you, I'm in. Like, I've had problems with Trump since January 6th, even though I get all the gray areas of it and all that. I still thought he should have acted more quickly. At this point, with the New York conviction, I thought, forget it. Now he's a hero, and I'm with him all the way. And when I saw this, I thought, like, dude, you know, if you're not, who do you want to be your president against Putin and Iran and China? A guy who stands up and almost gets his head blown off. Also, still has the presence of mind.
You had this moment at the RNC where he addresses it, and I thought the first half of that speech especially was extraordinarily good and brought tears to my eyes, as it did to a lot of people. And he says, you know, you don't understand. I'm not supposed to be here. And the people say, yes, you are. Yes, you are. And he I love it. This beautiful moment of humility. He goes, thanks. But I'm not. I'm not, actually. But he is in the broader sense. And so if you believe, as we do here, that the entire cosmos is extraordinary, perfectly tightly knit to achieve God's ultimate ends in history and providence, then as astonishing as the attempted assassination was, you would say yes, of course. Of course, Trump turned his head 20 degrees a nanosecond as the guy is pulling the trigger, and it just, instead of blowing the back of his head off, it just whizzed off the top of his ear. Of course, that happened in God's providence. Doesn't make it any less astonishing in the moment, but that is not only a vindication of Donald Trump's political courage, a complete condemnation of how the left has justified the assassination for 8 years now, calling him Hitler, calling him an existential threat to the country.
Performing it on stages.
Stages, holding his severed head up in effigy. But it's also a one more example of glory given to God in this just absolutely magnificent, an event that is impossible to explain absent a logic to the universe and providence.
Yeah, and obviously it's about Donald Trump, but other people were hurt and a man was killed as well. Like it is an actual real thing. There are people on the left saying it was staged and all this kind of all this kind of nonsense. Well, someone is dead. Someone was murdered.
And the assassin was killed too, so he got a bad deal. A troll of some sort.
Right. Yeah, the funny thing is, if he did stage it, he still has a lot of courage because he hired someone to shoot at his head. Right. It takes a lot of guts. And obviously, this was an incredibly courageous moment for Trump, especially because we have to remember when he stood up, he didn't know if the threat was neutralized or not. So for all he knew, there could be more shots coming his way. So there's that. But of course, we also have to talk about what allowed that to happen and everything that's been revealed over the last 2 weeks, or 10 days. It's just with each new detail, and this is the case, with each new thing that's added, it just makes the failure, if that's what it was, even more mind-boggling. And I think we're still at a point where there are a lot of so-called conspiracy theories cropped up immediately after this. And I think all of them are still basically on the table. I don't think even the most nefarious possible interpretation has not yet been ruled out, especially when you consider things like the guy was on the roof for 20 minutes and was known to be there. They saw him with a rifle 3 minutes. This was the latest, I think. They saw him with a rifle 3 minutes before he fired the shot. They saw him 3 hours initially before all this happened.
Nobody told Trump, as he just revealed in an interview with Jesse Waters.
And it would have been very easy just to say, well, hang out here for a second. We got that guy off a roof.
They do that to me when I do a YAF speech or an ISI speech. And I'm just some guy, and the threats aren't a guy with a rifle. And they will hold the events for 15 minutes. You've got a former president, current leading presidential nominee, and nothing? You just put him out there in the middle of
She just stepped down, right? She'll just resign.
Small potato.
But amazing. She's the first person in the Biden administration to take responsibility for anything.
And she also stepped down. She testified in front of Congress, and she stepped down immediately after that.
Yeah, Ben?
What did you say, Ben?
Yeah, no, she had to be forced to do it.
Well,
she said she wasn't going to go, and Biden made no move to fire her. And then only because Congress was about to impeach her did she finally get out. And I think it speaks to two major issues. One having to do with the deep state, with the Secret Service, and one having to do with sort of just generally the way that our government has become utterly incompetent, incapable of doing anything. And that's the best, as Matt says, interpretation is just the insane levels of incompetence right here. But there is a malignity. And that malignity is that Secret Service was asked multiple times by Trump's campaign for more Secret Service agents, for more protection. And they didn't give it. And that's become clear through whistleblower testimony.
And then they lied about it.
They were requested. Like, Donald Trump should be the most protected person on the planet because we all know how many people want to kill him. And in fact, we know that weeks before, the Iranians, apparently there was an Iranian plot to kill him that was basically uncovered by the CIA. And they knew about it. And so they still didn't give him extra security for something like that. Either that is an extraordinary level of lack of care and lack of fulfillment of duty, or it's something that is more nefarious. And again, everyone knows I'm very non-conspiratorial when it comes to this stuff. I just think that people are really bad at their jobs. This is like the height of bad at your job. You literally had one job. I mean, the Secret Service has one job. And the fact that it took this long for her to be ousted from her job, once again, speaks to the fact that if Donald Trump does become president, I hope he fires nearly everybody in the executive branch, because this sort of incompetence runs just bone deep with a huge number of our executive agencies.
So in the Navy, if you're the captain of a ship, you obviously can't work 24 hours a day. No human being works. Drew works 21. But most human beings can't work anything like that number of hours during the day. And so even if you're the captain of a ship at sea, there's time where you're in your bunk asleep at night. And that's not against the rule. I mean, you have to be off duty in your bunk asleep at night. If the captain of a ship is asleep in his bunk at night, and the ship is involved in a collision, he is immediately removed as the captain of the ship and fired from the Navy. He is out. And the reason is because it's not that it is his fault in a sort of urgent, literal sense, but it is ultimately his fault because it's life and death for sailors on a ship at sea. And if you created the culture that allowed the ship to have a collision, even though it wasn't your fault, you weren't on duty, you weren't on the bridge, nevertheless, you're immediately... to be the head of the Secret Service, whose job, like the captain of a ship, is life or death, the protection of a very small handful of principals, presidents, former presidents, cabinet officials, and other kinds of high dignitaries. The very idea that someone could put a bullet through one of your protectees, who happens to be a former president of the United States and leading candidate for one of the major parties' nomination at that time, the fact that it would even occur to you that you still have it, like, it shouldn't be that Joe Biden fired her the next day. It should have been that within 30 minutes, her letter of resignation was on the desk of the president of the United States.
It's not only a lack of honor, it's a display of disdain for the people.
That's right.
And this is what really gets me about the Biden administration, is nobody steps down, the border's secure, people are pouring across, they come out and tell us the border's secure, nobody has to pay for his lies, nobody has to respond to a subpoena, they put, Bannon in jail because he didn't respond to...
Well, live in a broken clock.
No, but, all the same, I think that there's no responsibility to the people because they don't feel that they're responsible for the people.
She stepped down, great, obviously way too late. But some people, I fear, want to give the Democrats credit for this because not only was it Andy Biggs was really tough on her during this testimony, Nancy Mace was really tough on her, but also Democrats. AOC was really tough on her.
Mm-hmm.
Ro Khanna, big liberal Democrat from California, was tough on her. But yeah, of course they are. She's small potatoes. It doesn't matter. I think the reason they're willing to throw her overboard is, one, there's just no defense of her staying in her job. But two, because then they get to keep her boss. Who's her boss? Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary. Then they get to keep his boss, Biden, who says that he's staying on the job even though he's got dementia for 6+ months. So it was a very low-cost way to distract from the situation. But this is not good enough. This is not even close to good enough. Her resignation should not be the end of the story. This should be the very beginning of the story. Mm-hmm. The fact that they did get requests from the Trump campaign for more security. The fact that the Trump campaign had to request more security, insane. The fact that they did and it was denied,
You're right.
Insane. And then the fact that the Secret Service lied about it. They came out, they said, we have not received requests. Oh, oopsie daisy. Washington Post asked me a few more questions. We did get some requests. Now, it doesn't just look like a screw up. Now it looks like a cover-up. And I'm not saying it's a cover-up for a conspiracy necessarily, but even if it's a cover-up for incompetence, that is a major, major problem.
What is the innocent explanation for something like she's asked at the hearing, how many shell casings did they find on the roof? And she won't answer. She says she knows the answer, but she won't tell.
She wouldn't answer how many gunmen there were.
Right. Yes. Did he act alone? She wouldn't say. So I'm maybe I tend a little bit more towards the conspiratorial, I'll admit, but I'm really wondering, what is the innocent way to explain that?
Can I take a crack at it?
Okay.
First of all, she should have been out of a job instantly. I'm not sure that people shouldn't be prosecuted. Horrible. This event is terrible. There are explanations for why you don't give all of the information in testimony less than 10 days from an event, and it's because there's an ongoing, presumably, because there's an ongoing investigation. You don't want to give away all the information that would allow you to conduct that investigation. But I want to speak to the conspiracy more broadly. Think about what has to be true for it to have been on purpose. All the Secret Service snipers have to be in on it. All of the local law enforcement who are patrolling the outer perimeter have to be out on it, have to be in on it, because they can't accidentally do anything to stop it. All of the sort of redneck MAGA T-shirt wearing, because you're outside of the metal detectors here, you're outside of the perimeter. Any one of them could have a concealed firearm. Any one of them could have intervened. I mean, the luck is not a business model. If you're going to have the deep state who have snipers who are capable of the amazing shot that the sniper actually took to kill this guy, you have those people on payroll. If they wanted to shoot Donald Trump, they would have shot Donald Trump. There are pieces of conspiracy. I'm sure there was a conspiracy of sorts not to give him more protection. But that's and then I told that son of a gun Donald Trump's team, we're not sending, but that's not a conspiracy to get him killed. That's a kind of loose conspiracy of attitude.
Yeah. But generally want him dead.
A general,
not specifically.
Yeah, it's a general disdain. The reason when these moments happen, we become conspiratorial, is because when a moment like this happens, so many things have to have gone wrong all at the same time that it seems completely implausible, right? Like there are 20 things that went wrong here. How could that all be a coincidence? But what I would put before you is that that's how it always is in these moments, because human systems, particularly in an advanced society, are actually fairly robust. And the robustness of the system tends to absorb single and even double failures. And so a great example of this is you might be driving down the road, and we've all done this. You glance down at a text message. Should you have done it? No, it's a terrible thing to do. Do you hit a school bus and kill 30 innocent children every time you do it? No. In fact, for most of us, we will never hit a school bus and kill 30 kids, no matter how many times we look down at a text message. And that's because there's a certain robustness to the system. The other driver is driving defensively and paying attention to the road. Our cars have monitors and beep, beep, beeps. There's those little lines on the road, and when you hit them, they go da-da-da-da-da-da and kind of snap you back. This is a fairly simple system, but even it is robust enough to absorb single failures most of the time. Doesn't always, but most of the time. And so it winds up being the case that when these truly terrible events happen, 9/11, this attempted assassination of Donald Trump, other examples, it tends to be the case in these moments that we only know about it because this is the time when everything went wrong. And the truth is, Ben brought up this Iranian plot on Donald Trump's life from a few weeks ago. 98% of Americans have not even heard of that. Right. Because the truth is that the system is so robust. There's always a guy with a long object that could be a rifle, and the sniper sees him. There's always the local law enforcement calls something in, and they're on the wrong channel because they're not used to interacting with the Secret Service. There's always the overweight girl from DHS who got assigned to the detail because they didn't have enough Secret Service agents. And some of those things are always going wrong. But the robustness of the system generally mitigates against the worst case scenario. I completely
agree with this. It's what pilots call a failure cascade.
A failure cascade.
I totally agree with this. I will say this, however, and this is not a conspiracy thing at all. We know from Benghazi that this is a party that expresses its contempt for people by not supplying them with enough protection. And that's a dangerous thing to do, and it shows their disregard for human life of the people we know they feel this way. We know they feel, every single one of us in this room could be backed over by a cement truck and not a tear would be shed in the Democratic Party. And that is the way they are. I mean, it's something...
Well, and to Ben's point, there is a malignancy to it. Whether it's a vast conspiracy to assassinate Donald Trump or not, there is an evil that's working. There's an actual hatred of Donald Trump that contributed to the cascade.
And he's right that it's not him they hate, it's us, and he's just in the way. He's right about that. I mean, they hate him too, but I'm just saying he does represent the people that they hate.
Evidence of this exact phenomenon is the reaction of the influencer Destiny on X in the hours after the attempted assassination. When you say Donald Trump is in the way, they hate all of us, this is literally true because Donald Trump happened to turn very lightly out of the way and the bullet passed him and hit one of us. It hit one of the people, one of the supporters of Donald Trump, and killed him. And Destiny, this left-wing influencer who heretofore I thought obviously was zany and out of control, but never would have guessed this kind of a reaction.
Yeah.
He was crowing and mocking this dead man who took Donald Trump's bullet. And his argument was the very fact of this human supporting Donald Trump means that he deserved to have his brains blown out at a rally that he was attending with his wife and children.
Right.
So literally, Donald Trump was in the way of this man, and when he stepped out of the way, then the guy deserved it.
Now, I just did this video on my show in the member block talking about how much I've always disliked Joe Biden because I feel he's a mean-spirited, corrupt man who just does such cynical things, the things he did to Bork, the things he did to Clarence Thomas, just unbelievable corruption in this guy all his career. And I just hate hearing this. He's been a great public servant. But I prefaced it by saying, and I literally feel this way, I don't wish him physical ill. I'm not happy to see him suffering from what he's suffering from. Everybody gets old, everybody dies. Not me, but I mean everybody else. Yeah. But, and I mean, I think you do have to stop and say, like, he is a human being. He's one of us. We're all gonna end up before the same throne and the same judge. It's not. That's not what this is about. This is about who has the power and who gets to run things and who doesn't. And that's all it's about.
While we're being nice to Biden and thinking about his
stop. We can
career,
stop.
Yeah, I was trying to think about whether or not I feel bad for him. And I don't feel bad that his career is ending in a humiliating way.
No.
I don't feel bad at all. But I do pity him in that he has spent most of his life, now since 1970s, first time he gets elected to the Newcastle County Council, and then 1972 he's elected to the Senate before he's old enough to even to serve, and he's there pretty much ever since. He has been in government for 54 years, or with a little break in between, and he gave up a lot of the things that could have given him a good life. He sacrificed a lot of that to waste his time at the U.S. Capitol. And I think public life is really good. I'm not one of these people who constantly is denigrating politics. I think politics is important. I think the state is a natural institution. I think it serves the common good. But he hasn't accomplished anything in his whole career. He gave up 54 years. Name me one big accomplishment that he can point to for it.
Gay marriage. No, I'm not kidding.
He did kind of.
I'm not kidding. I actually,
the crime bill was good, but they unwound it.
I read a piece by Maureen Dowd 8 years ago, probably, and I think that she's a wonderful writer. Obviously, I have never yet agreed with one of her columns, but I usually enjoy reading them. And she wrote one that I found really touching during the second Obama term, and it was about her pity for Joe Biden because Obama treated him like an absolute doormat.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden was a loyal and faithful and supportive vice president. He fought all of the fights he needed to fight on behalf of Joe Biden, on behalf of Barack Obama. Barack Obama would continually emasculate him, continually subject him to humiliation and degradation, and yet Joe Biden continued to be a party man, a company man, and do what he was supposed to do. And there's part of me that has a certain pity for him now because, as you say, for his entire career, he has been the guy who did what his party asked him to do. Yep. And those very people truly did
threw him under the bus.
Joe, give up your faith. I mean, that's basically what they said. When your faith contradicts liberalism, go with us, change your opinion even on supposedly deeply held views at a whim. You got to go. And he did it. And where does it get him? I mean, I guess this is all Faustian bargains.
He got the presidency.
So he did get the presidency for what, for 5 minutes? 18 months or whatever?
I also say that on this point, I mean, he got betrayed by everybody in his life, and I have no sympathy for him at all on that point. But this is also just, I wanted to say, because I think that we haven't heard from Joe Biden. At least we don't think we've actually heard his actual voice in a week. And it's a very odd situation to be ghosted by the president, and then he breaks up with you on Twitter, and we don't hear anything from him. And there's a lot of theories about, well, he might be on his deathbed. A lot of reports on Twitter about he's in a medical crisis. He's dying. They're covering it up. And I can understand why people would speculate about that, but it never made any sense to me. But of course, if he was actually in the middle of that kind of potentially fatal medical crisis, that's great for the Democrats because it absolves them of the claim that this is a coup. It legitimizes the coup. It allows them to install Kamala Harris as a president for a few months, which I think helps her politically. So I don't think that's why he's disappeared from the public eye for a few days. I think it's because he had COVID. They shuffled him off into quarantine. And while he's there, and when he left for quarantine, I think he still thought he's going to be president when he comes out. And while he was there over the weekend, they officially put the hammer down on him. And I think on Sunday, he probably would have wanted to talk to the American people, but they didn't want him to because they couldn't trust what he was going to say. And obviously, if Joe Biden comes out in front of the public, because eventually, supposedly he's going to talk to the public tomorrow, if there's even a whiff from Biden that he is bitter about this, that he didn't want it, that he doesn't want to go along with it, even a hint of it, then everything falls apart for the Democrats. Everything falls apart for Kamala because now she looks like she was scheming against him and pushed the old man out. So I think what happened is that they pushed him out and they have not really let him get near cameras for the last few days because they want to make sure, I don't know what they're working out behind the scenes, but when he's in front of cameras, he needs to play ball and pretend that he wanted this. And it could be interesting because we know his penchant for going off script.
He did say to Kamala Harris, and I actually thought that was him talking, but he said to Kamala Harris, "I've got your back," which is exactly what Obama said to him. But he didn't realize Obama meant he was acquiring a target.
Yeah, I've got your back on March 15th with a knife. The reason I think it was him on the, and we were just talking backstage about this, I think it was him because if you listen, there were some ums, there were some uhs that are hard to produce in, say, 11 Labs or any of the audio AI programs, but it sounded like he didn't have his dentures in. It's like that. and which we've heard from him before, and we've heard from elderly politicians before. I think that's what was going on. I think that would be very hard to reproduce on AI.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We are 5 minutes and 25 seconds away from our big announcement for the night. It will live up. I know sometimes we hype that there's going to be a big announcement, and then it turns out that the big announcement is nothing. We literally don't have a big announcement. This is not one of those. We do have something big to tell you. We're going to share it in 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Between now and then, VP predictions on the left. What do we think is going to happen over here? What does Kamala need to shore up her chances?
Cooper in North Carolina seems like a smart choice if it were me. I know people are talking about Andy Beshear in Kentucky. I don't really buy it. Don't see what he brings to the ticket other than he's a white guy, and actually that does, in a way, balance out the ticket, though maybe not in the eyes of the Democrats, perhaps for swing voters. Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, I don't buy because the Democrats don't like the Jews. I don't think that
he's too moderate for them.
And he's too moderate. I don't think that works for them. Cooper, he kind of looks like a president. You know, North Carolina might help him out in North Carolina. I think there's a good chance.
Is he a fighter?
He's kind of a tough guy. He's more of a tough guy than some of the pushovers. And, you know, you could say, well, the biggest fighter, the American Psycho level Patrick Bateman fighter, is Gavin Newsom in California. But I think a lot of these people, I mean, to the point we were making earlier with Whitmer, Gavin Newsom's a real political talent, and he's a young man by today's standards. He's a child by today's presidential standards.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of them don't really see a likely path for Kamala.
He can't be on the ticket, right? Because he's...
Well, you can always
can.
You can always work it. Like Bush and Cheney were both in Texas, and Cheney just changed his residency to Wyoming, and he was able to run. So, you know, it's tricky. There were reports that Trump was still considering Rubio. Trump is a Florida resident now. He was still considering Rubio as late as a day or two before the pick. And, you know, you can change it with little residency movements. It's tricky, but you could do it.
There are people in the party, by the way. I spoke to people who were very close to Donald Trump, who were with Donald Trump 3 days before he announced J.D. Vance, and he told them that his pick was Glenn Youngkin. And now, taking a bullet through the ear will probably make a man think differently about his vice presidential picks, but this was after that. It was the day immediately after he was shot. I think that it just is the case that it was very difficult for Donald Trump to decide who he wanted. He probably made up his mind and then changed it a handful of times. And if you're Trump and you're trying to think of who is my VP candidate going to be, it is a little bit different than what you need if you're Kamala Harris. Typically, you need a fighter to be your vice president, but Trump is the fighter, and so he's, in the case of Mike Pence, he counterbalanced himself not with a hatchet man, but with actually someone who might have a more moderate appeal. It depends on which Kamala they're actually running.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right.
We have yet to see who she is going to be.
It's also clever of them to finally push Biden out until after the VP pick. I'm elated by the JD pick. I think he's terrific. I really like him a lot. So, you know, I would go with him either way. But you are picking your VP based on the ticket you think you're running. If you're the challenger campaign, you're running against the incumbents, you're basing it on the incumbents. And so for them to wait until that, they have the advantage to counter-program the Trump.
Yeah, politicians, except for picking J.D. Vance, politicians never do what I want them to do because I always want them to make the bold move. Yeah. It's not my job that's on the line, so it's easy. I think she's got the problem that Newsom and Whitmer think they have a path to the presidency, and it's not her. And so why would they get on this train that they think is going to go off the rails? If I were her, if I were she, what I would do is I'd pick a woman. I'd pick Hochul in New York, maybe, because then you've got something really startling: 2 women running for president and vice president. And then you
have 2 women who weren't voted, who weren't elected.
That's right.
Perfect. All the better. That's the Democrat Party on wheels, right?
You know, actually, though, on the New York point is really good because I was talking to sweet little Elise about this, who has a great political gut, which is why she just never says anything publicly. You know, that's a true mark of political genius. But she pointed out, had they not Me Too'd Andy Cuomo in order to cover up for his actual scandal, which was screwing up during COVID and killing thousands of people, but had they kept Andy Cuomo, who I think they really pushed out over bogus reasons, he would have been a pretty good pick.
Your little Jewish wife and my little Jewish wife, Ben Shapiro, agree on this point. Ben called me 24 hours ago or 48 hours ago and said the exact same thing. He said, it's amazing that they pushed out Cuomo because this would absolutely have been his moment. And they pushed him out front. There were good reasons to push out Cuomo.
Yeah.
Those are not the reasons that they chose.
Yeah.
Right? They still defend all the actual horrible things that Cuomo did. What they don't like about him is the things that they all do.
And he's also, everybody hated him. I mean, everybody despised him in New York. He was just one of those guys that nobody likes.
So we are 5 seconds away from our giant announcement for tonight. Hope that you're still tuning in. And if you're over at dailywire.com as one of our members, thank you. We'll be taking questions from you in only a couple of minutes. I suspect several of them will be on this topic. At the Daily Wire, we have a mission: fight the left and build the future. Our company started on this mission 9 years ago, shooting our first podcast, including yours, Drew, from my converted pool house garage. Since then, we've had a lot of watershed moments. We've taken on the establishment and fought the Biden and Harris administration and their tyrannical vaccine mandate, and won. We've created alternatives to the left's corporate hegemony with Jeremy's Razors and our delicious Mayflower cigars. We've taken on Disney and the destruction of innocence with our bent-key children's entertainment platform. It now has over 1,000 episodes of wonderful kids content, by the way, and over 100 million minutes viewed. We brought you the most influential documentary of a generation, What is a Woman?, Matt Walsh's seminal work, which helped turn the tide on the anti-human trans movement. Today is another one of those watershed moments in the life of our company. The Daily Wire is taking another giant step toward fulfilling our purpose. Our vision demands that we not just stand on the outside throwing rocks, but that we actually enter the arena ourselves to create and inspire and shape the culture that shapes our future. That's why today I'm proud to announce that Matt Walsh has a brand new movie, and this time it's coming to the big screen. This time it's more than just a documentary. Target the twisted racists and grifters who make their living teaching Americans to hate each other and themselves in the name of anti-racism. On September 13th, it's coming to a theater near you, and it's called Am I Racist?
Let's be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up in the 90s, I never thought much about race. Sure, you noticed, but never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Being a white, straight, cisgender man is the top of the pile.
I'm on the top of the pile. That's me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Can you please leave?
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover. If I want to be an ally, I need to look like one.
What is racism?
Martin Luther King said not to judge people by
Martin Luther King said a lot of stuff.
Is America inherently racist?
What the hell is that?
The word inherent is challenging there. America is racist to its bones. All of the...
So inherently.
Yeah.
The entire system has to burn. And I'm not going to even use save this country. This country is not worth saving. This country is a piece of shit.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
They gonna say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. Where are you guys on your anti-racist journeys? So I'll look around the room and point to who we believe is the most racist person in the room. We want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument. Would you mind signing it? You will? What do you think about this issue of heteronormativity and how it intersects with the broader structures of racism in society?
They gonna say I'm racist.
What's up with white people? What are you doing to decenter your whiteness?
Who's making it the center? Why are they doing that?
And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
White.
Entitlement.
White.
Centering.
White.
Silence.
Is there a black person around here?
There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gonna say I'm racist, but they call everybody racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. And what's your name?
I'm Matt.
Matt. Hi, Matt.
Nice to meet you.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist, but they call everybody racist.
That's Robin DiAngelo.
That is Robin.
That is the head of the anti-racist movement.
That's her.
How did you get her?
I can't reveal our secrets.
Can't reveal it. Yeah,
of course I can't reveal it. But it's tough because there's so many things about this film that I want to talk about, but I don't want to spoil. There's so much that's not in there, including where that particular conversation goes. And all I can say is it goes to a pretty wild place. But we can't give it away. And look, we've been working on this film for a long time, over a year. This journey of mine into anti-racism and eventually into DEI. And of course, the thing hanging over this film as we started to make it is what is a woman, and we know that's sort of the expectation. We have to kind of live up to that, and so we're very cognizant of that the whole time. And that was one of our incentives to approach the film and approach this subject in a very, very different way. There are a lot of through lines. If you liked What Is a Woman, I think there's a lot of things in this that you're gonna notice, a lot of kind of things, similar sort of style. But one of the big sort of differences here, I think, is that we started on this journey into anti-racism and just kind of asking people questions, as we did in What Is a Woman. But in this case, we decided that I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to get the answers, and I'll believe the answers, and I'm going to let these people guide me on each step of the journey. And so I'm going to take what they tell me and try to put it into practice, and that just takes us down a rabbit hole that by the end of the film is pretty wild as it continues.
I have to say my security at the RNC had been your security on this picture, and they were singing its praise. I mean, they couldn't stop saying how great it was and how fabulous they thought Justin Folk directed and you were. They just loved it. And,
people are not going to believe the content of this film. And in part it's because in What Is a Woman, Matt sort of takes the approach of being the everyman and hearing from the radical transhumanists what they actually think. This is different because in some ways we know what the quote-unquote anti-racists think. They've had 40 years of promulgating their deeply racist view of white America. And so what Matt does here that I don't think anyone has ever done in any conservative film before is he takes a page from the book of people like Sacha Baron Cohen, people even like Jon Stewart during the heyday of
Daily Show.
The Daily Show, thank you. He actually trolls them. He lets them speak in their own words. This isn't about selective editing. But he actually allows them, he makes fun of them in the room with them, and they still don't get it because they have been so secure for so long in their position. And so this movie has a different attitude, to your point, than What Is a Woman. This movie, yes, reveals what they believe, yes, reveals how insidious is their worldview, but also mocks them. And the right has for too long been afraid to mock the horrible people and horrible ideas on the left. And so this truly is, it is a successor to What Is a Woman in fact, but it is something new. It is something different in kind than, that's why we're saying it's not just a documentary, it's a social experiment. Part of what we're saying is it is a documentary, it all really happened. But it goes so far beyond just being a documentary, and we're very proud of it. I'm very proud. I have to say, as the founder of the company, it's an amazing thing to play one of our trailers and to have that MPAA rating in front of the trailer, because this is a theatrical film that is coming out in theaters on September 13th. Tickets will go on sale in just a little over 2 weeks. It'll be nationwide. But this is an actual rated theatrical movie.
And we were very happy to get the PG-13, by the way. That was a little worried about getting hit with the R, but PG-13 is good.
PG-13 is good, and it is PG-13. It's the right rating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I was saying with this film, it's with What Is a Woman, it was asking a question, remaining sort of a blank slate, skeptical through the whole thing. With this, it's really just it's a pretty simple pivot at the beginning of rather than remaining skeptical, just, okay, I'll buy that. So this is what you tell me. America's inherently racist, so on and so on. And I'll buy that. So that takes me to the next person I have to talk to, and they tell me this. And just seeing what happens when you put it into action and also embody, because that's something that the left has done, to your point, Jeremy, that the left has employed this tactic to great success of actually embodying what they believe to be a version of conservatism and then sort of shining it back into our faces. And it's always really cartoonish and not accurate. But so here's a similar tactic of we're going to embody what this thing is and kind of reveal its absurdities that way.
I think if it's as good as the trailer, it's going to be a smash.
When you hear the things that Sarah Rao, for example, says behind closed doors, when you see the things that Matt is able to drive them to in conversation, and they go along with it because their worldview will not allow them to stop, even at the most absurd expressions of their belief set. Even when they sort of know that they're moving into territory that's uncomfortable, they can't stop because he has so perfectly allowed them to step into the trap of their own making, the trap of their own worldview. Truly, the funniest thing to me that's happening in the world right now is that Sarah Rao and Robin DiAngelo and so many other people in this film, they know what they said. They know what they did. They know the things that aren't in the trailer. And I know that they just saw this trailer and went, oh, crap. Oh, crap.
It's important.
And it couldn't happen to a nicer
group of people. It's important to note, though, you didn't punk them. You punked them in the sense that...
the hair.
They didn't know who you are and you had the hair. But you didn't punk them in the sense that you didn't make them say anything. Yeah. They said what they want to say.
And there's no clever editing to put words in their mouth or anything like that. They said what they said. Sarah Rao is that the scene at the beginning, sitting around, again, I don't want to give too much away, but that's people who are really plugged into this might recognize that scene there because that's called Race to Dinner, where they charge white women to come to dinner and call them racist for 2 hours. And it was one when we first started making this film, my great dream, because I knew about this Race to Dinner thing. I heard about it years ago. And I said, we have to get in the room for one of those things. I just need to be there for it. And turns out you actually have to be a biological woman. They pretty much specify that to be at the dinner, but there are other ways we discovered to get into the room, even as a white man. And the things that are said at that dinner are just are funny from a distance, but also quite horrifying, especially when you see these women that are sitting there and just absorbing it. It's probably the most intense brainwashing session I've ever witnessed.
Wow.
And little spoiler here. Matt did get recognized once, and they called the police.
Really? Well, we've all done that. I mean.
And it's all on camera. We won't say where it happens or when it happens, but just know that for there to be someone who disagrees in the room is a threat to these people. Like the very presence of someone with a different opinion is an act in itself of physical violence. It's called Am I Racist? It's coming to theaters September 13th. Be watching for tickets to go on sale in about 2.5 weeks. In fact, we're hopeful that tickets will go on sale corresponding with our event at the Ryman Auditorium. Backstage coming to you live at the Ryman Auditorium here in Nashville, Tennessee on August 14th. There are tickets still available right now for that. You can get them at dailywire.com. While you're there, if you're not a member, use promo code FIGHT and we'll give you 47% off of your annual membership right now. That's promo code FIGHT, 47%, because we're fighting for Donald Trump to be the 47th president of the United States. We're going to move into taking some questions from some of our Daily Wire members right now. I'm hoping we get a question from our friend Laurel because it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Laurel.
Oh, great. Many happy returns.
What are the chances they toss Kamala aside if her initial poll numbers are in the basement before the convention? Listen, they love to run people from the basement. That was their whole 2020 strategy. It'd be very hard for them to set Kamala aside at this point.
And only Obama has kept his powder dry on this. Once Nancy Pelosi went over and endorsed her.
Schumer
I think
already did too.
Yeah. I think they're all in. And I do believe that they're sort of saying at this point, after all, Trump will destroy democracy and Trump is Hitler. They're actually saying, 4 years of Trump, then we'll be back. And I think that what they wanted was the bleeding to stop because of the guys lower down on the ticket. And I think that that's what they've achieved. I don't see why they would throw her aside from that.
Yeah, it's hard. You get one do-over. I don't know that you get two do-overs. Right. Look, a lot has happened in 9 days, so 3.5 weeks is a long time until a convention. But it would seem to me, once Hakeem Jeffries came out, Schumer both had the same line. They said, this is a grassroots movement to put Kamala on the ballot. From the bottom up, not the top down. That's why no one voted for it. And,
And we're not going to dare give him a chance.
Yeah, I think really whatever the Obamas do at this point, I think the fix is kind of in.
Yeah.
Can President Obama be appointed as VP on the Harris ticket? This is sort of an interesting question. Michael, you might know the law better than I. My belief is no.
Yeah. I believe the answer is no.
Because he is ineligible. But it is kind of a gray. He's not like descriptively prohibited, but since he isn't eligible to serve again as President of the United States, I think it's sort of like...
Yeah.
I don't think he wants it either.
He wouldn't want it. No president would want it. And he would be constitutionally ineligible from fulfilling really the only duty of the office, which is to
President of the
Senate, and then also to assume the office. So I think he likes his place in Maui.
Is that the Chris wig from Lady Ballers, Matt?
That is. Although I think it's kind of...
I think we should just tell them. It's complicated.
Yeah, it's a little. Because the Chris wig from Lady Ballers it's more the other way around. So these things were happening, yeah.
The documentary was mostly shot, and we thought it would come out before Lady Ballers, when we started making Lady Ballers, and we thought it would be fun if Matt's character from Am I Racist was the character in Lady Ballers, but then nothing ever happens the way that you think it's going to happen. And so it all got confusing, and now...
It's really confusing because that character from Lady Ballers and Am I Racist actually becomes Matt Walsh of the Matt Walsh Show, which we thought those were both going to come out before the Matt Walsh Show launched. So it's like Inception, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like...
I do feel like Nolan. I feel a little like Chris Nolan.
Yeah. Parallel universes are a hot thing in movies these days, so it's a little bit like that. Yeah. Parallel universes.
Can my 13-year-old go with me to see Am I Racist?
Oh, man. Yes, I would say.
What does the MPAA say?
Yeah,
the MPAA says yes.
The movie is PG-13. It is not rated R. And I don't just mean that it's not rated R because we eked it out and didn't get an R rating. It is PG-13. Now, that said, not every parent is comfortable taking their kid to a PG-13 movie. It is not PG. It's has a few racy moments. It has some colorful characters who say colorful things.
Hey, characters of color, I think is what you're
and so I think that it is, some parental discretion is well merited here, but...
and I would say it's the decision to bring your kid, it's less about the language, because there's not a lot of it and that sort of thing. It's more just it's just the topic. Do you think do you want to, is your child ready to be introduced to topics like that? So that's really, that's the decision there.
This question's for Ben Shapiro, and it's from our friend Laurel. Happy birthday, Laurel. I said it twice, although I think somebody just told me in a chat that it's not actually your birthday. Maybe your birthday was a day or two ago, and so I feel, scammed.
Yeah, tricked.
If you were a presidential nominee, Ben, who would you pick as your VP?
I think that right now in American politics, somebody competent, I mean, listen, the obvious answer is my favorite governor in the whole wide world, Ron DeSantis, would be a great VP because you know that he would take care of business inside the executive branch. God forbid something happened to you. He would be an excellent president of the United States. But again, I think that a lot of the people that Trump considered would be very good VPs. And Tom Cotton from Arkansas is another person of whom I'm very fond. I think that he's very hardcore, obviously, in terms of defending America's interests abroad. I think he'd make an excellent Secretary of Defense if Donald Trump decides to look that way. But again, I think that there are a lot of really good candidates. And as for JD, I think JD's a brilliant guy, and he's a good pick for Trump.
I'm sitting right here. The question was, who would you pick for VP? I'm sitting right here. I teed up the question.
You're chief of staff. We know this already. You're chief of staff. And Michael Knowles is press secretary because that dude will say anything for money.
Wait a second. Hold on. Wait. I guess that's a compliment. Is that? I got a job in the admin. I'll take it.
Matt, would you have shaved your beard if it would help disguise you more for the documentary?
No, I would not have. We had this guy. This is a long conversation we had early on making the film, and we talked about what are easy ways that I can disguise myself, and that, of course, was tossed out there. But I said that that's just a line I won't cross, because then I have to live. If I didn't have to. The thing is, I had to do the podcast at the same time. If I could just shave the beard and then do this, and then hide myself in shame till it grows back, and then appear again on camera, then I would. But living as a beardless person in my day-to-day life, I can't imagine what you guys go through.
Not everyone's cut out for it. Not every.
If you had, would you have used Jeremy's razor?
Well, that's yes.
It's not the question's rhetorical. Was Vance a mistake now that they're not running against a dead person?
I don't think so. No, I think Vance was a good pick. I think Vance is a good pick because he is super sharp. He's young. He's ambitious. He's capable. He's all those things that you want. And because Trump made a decision here that he wanted a pick for legacy. He wanted a pick for the future. He could have picked a guy who was going to be a nice little foil for 4 years and then, faded away into the bushes. But that's not what he wanted. I'm glad that's not what he wanted. And JD, I think, can create a vision of the Trump movement, such as it is, into 2028, 2032, and so that I think is great. I think it's also in an age where people are so sick of identity politics and wokeism and whatever euphemism you want to use. I actually think it's bold to pick just like a kind of normal looking dude from Ohio who, by the way, has bona fides in the mainstream culture because he had this best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, that was made into a movie. Now the libs hate him and disavow him. But, this is a guy who has real appeal, especially to the voters Trump needs to drive out, which is in the Rust Belt.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's a tough question.
I kind of disagree.
Well, let me throw this to you. Let me throw this question to you, Ben, because I think that it gets to the disagreement. As someone who believes in the free market, what is your justification for supporting someone as anti-free market as J.D. Vance?
Okay, so that wasn't exactly where I was going to go, but I'll answer that question as well as the last one. As far as the last one, and whether JD is a good pick in a competitive race, I think obviously there were other picks that Trump could have made that would have been more likely to reach out to the middle, more likely to create a feeling of solidity as opposed to sort of an aggressive attack dog, as JD Vance is going to be for President Trump. If you pick Glenn Youngkin, I think, frankly, that he probably would have won Virginia and would have given him a leg up in some of the other states. Trump was already running very strong, probably ahead of J.D. Vance in places like Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Okay, as far as the actual free market question, I think it's yet to be decided just where J.D. is on the free market. If you read Hillbilly Elegy, that is one version of J.D. Vance, and if you listen to his speech from the RNC, that is a very different version of J.D. Vance. Hillbilly Elegy is essentially about how people who have been left behind have also engaged in a culture that keeps them down. It's a culture that has moved away from church, a culture that no longer sees agency as the center point of success in America and instead blames outside forces. That's the J.D. Vance that is very pro-free market and actually was very tied into the tech culture, for example. He founded like an entire tech company. After he wrote Hillbilly Elegy, he's very tied in with the tech culture now in San Francisco, actually, despite all the talk to the contrary. Then there's the J.D. Vance who was speaking at the RNC, who was talking about how essentially everybody had been left behind in these Rust Belt states. Sort of Henry Olsen argument. It sounds very much like almost Sherrod Brown, or like the union head who spoke a couple of nights beforehand. There was no mention of the free market, no mention of entrepreneurship. I think it sort of has to be left to the imagination exactly what J.D. Vance believes at this point. I'm not sure anybody really knows. He's done some interviews where he sounds a lot like Elizabeth Warren, and then he's done some interviews where he sounds a lot more like Jeremy or me when it comes to the free market. My guess is the answer is something in between. J.D. is certainly smart enough to understand the incredible power of the free market and entrepreneurship. I think he may be able to he may be trying to sand off the hard edges. This would be the sort of optimistic view from my perspective as somebody who's very free market oriented. He may be trying to sand off the rough edges of the free market economy for particular constituencies located in the Rust Belt. Again, not something that I particularly love, but something I can understand. With that said, if J.D. Vance is going so populist that he's sort of horseshoe theorying around all the way to Bernie Sanders, I think that everybody in the room would agree that's a problem.
Yeah, I do think that's my concern, obviously. I don't think he's going to do that. But I do think the important thing, for a long time, the big divide in this country is not right and left. It's pro the founding and anti the founding. I think he's pro the founding. I think he is anti-woke, which I think is a huge deal. I mean, I don't think people in media and people who are financially secure understand the power, the destructive power of woke. I think it is the thing that the battle we should be fighting. I think he's the right guy to fight it. I think he gets it. But I do confess that these are my concerns about him, that he's so anti-free market, that he's a Bernie bro. But I just don't think, I'm hoping he's not going to go there. No.
So we're taking questions from our Daily Wire Plus members. If you're not one, please head over to dailywireplus.com. Use promo code FIGHT. For the next 24 hours, we'll give you 47% off of your annual membership. For those of you who are members, we thank you. You're the reason that we're able to do these amazing things that we get to do at the Daily Wire, including make these documentaries like Matt's new film, Am I Racist?, coming to theaters on September 13th. A movie like this takes a lot of time and a huge investment of capital. It's a multi-million-dollar affair to create something like this and to bring it to theaters. And our Daily Wire Plus members are really the backbone of the entire organization and make those sorts of things possible. So here's another question from one of those members. Will using the 25th Amendment against Biden be a boost for Kamala as it makes her the first Black and Indian and female president, even without being able to say, quote, elected?
Yeah, I think it would certainly be a big boost for her because, I mean, it automatically makes her a historic figure because she is the first female president. And that the emotional blackmail, I think, is ramped up even more because then it's like, are you really going to fire the first female president after 5 months? Which, of course, I would easily say yes, but I don't know if...
I'd keep her as long as I could pay her 75 cents on the dollar.
Right, well, that's true. She is cheaper. But with that said, I think it would be a big boost for her politically, but I still think they should do it because even though I'm worried about the politics of it and how it would help them, I am also more worried about the fate of this country and actually having a president for 6 months who has announced himself to be mentally incompetent is just, it's way too dangerous to tolerate. So
I completely agree. She is more likely to win if she ascends the presidency, say, this week. And yet, 6 months is a long time in the history of the world, and this country cannot be without a president. It is an incredibly dangerous moment, and we're blasé about it because our every thought is fixed on this election.
Well, also because we don't think he's been president for the last
That's
year.
the key, I guess.
It is different.
It's different when people know it.
That's right. It's different when our enemies know it.
But don't you think, maybe some people who only watch the establishment media, they thought that Biden was really functioning. But Vladimir Putin, the FSB is still a pretty good intelligence service. Xi Jinping, he's still got some pretty good spies. And also they have eyes and ears, and they don't just listen to NBC. They knew, and by the way, America in the world has been run horribly since Biden was elected and then this committee of whoever was running things. So it's not that it's all gone well, but I don't think it'll, from now on, go worse than it's been going. I guess some might say it couldn't go worse.
It can always go worse. Would JFK be disappointed in the Democratic Party if he were alive today?
This is such a hilarious question because I always say to people, I am a JFK Democrat, or as they call us now, a radical MAGA fascist, white man. That's basically, JFK was a conservative. I mean, he was a tax-cutting, strong defense, anti-communist guy who, understood the civil rights movement had a point. That was his big liberal thing.
And who had to have sex at least once a day.
Well, that was
he had headaches.
That was the one thing. The women are not as attractive. And they also, the Me Too stuff, he might not like that.
But sure, if you say, compare the Democrats now to Democrats in the 60s, yeah, they were much more conservative in the 60s. But if JFK were alive today, or let's say he were a younger man, and he'd be a huge lib, because all the Kennedys are big libs, even RFK, who's not a doctrinaire or Democrat Party lib, but he's a big lib too. He'd just be a big lib. I think.
Okay, so you mean if you don't just transport? I was just transporting him from his.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Grover Cleveland would probably be a Republican today too, but at a different time.
Yeah, this is the problem with hypotheticals.
Yeah,
There's no such thing. Is Sweet Daddy Walsh's look based on Kerponzi from Bertram? I feel dirty.
I don't like all these accusations of this.
Appropriation.
If anything, the inspiration goes the other way.
I think it's fair to say that we've all been inspired by Matt. Will Matt's movie be in Canada?
I hope not.
Gee,
They don't
can you imagine?
America's evil top hat.
Think of such a thing. Wait, Canada's on top of America?
Yeah. It's confusing. We haven't paid a lot of attention to geopolitics.
I've never known where the hell it was. Does anyone else think that there will be a tsunami of illegals voting in the 2024 election that will swamp all the Republican races that matter?
Not a tsunami. I think it's a problem. But
there will be a bunch of them. But not a tsunami. I mean, the thing is that they really have registered illegal aliens to vote, and there are all sorts of laws that facilitate this, like giving driver's licenses or IDs to illegal aliens, then motor voter laws where you get automatic or encouraged registration. So they're doing it. I mean, there's no question that they're doing it. I don't know that it's really significant. And I don't know that their get out the vote operation is targeted enough at illegals for that to... There are other ways for them to rig the election, I think.
I am more cynical than you about this. I, as early as 2010, put out a movie on the topic of America's southern border. I think that it is unbelievable when you look at Texas going from being a red state to a almost purple state at this point. It's actually because of immigration that's happening. And it's not the immigration of Californians into California. It's native-born Texans who are first-generation children of mostly illegal immigrants.
That's different. And that is a big problem. That's why they do it, by the way. Yeah. Reagan had this line. He said, the Hispanics are Republicans. They just don't know it yet. And that's true of certain groups like Cubans, which is why Obama shut down immigration from Cuba and killed Wetfoot, Dryfoot. But generally speaking, no. Hispanic voters, even as they move largely, in great numbers to Republicans, they are overwhelmingly Democrats. After the big 20-point shift, Biden was still leading 51 with the majority of Hispanic votes. And second generation, even down to the third generation, they still identify overwhelmingly with Democrats.
Is there any legal argument Trump can use to litigate Kamala jumping into this so late in the process? No. I do want to speak to this point, though. I think there are some voices on the right. Many of them are never Trump voices, National Review guys from 2016, guys who I still like to read, and I think in many ways I still agree with them on many things. I think they just let Trump rot a part of their brain. And they're really defending what the Democrats just did. And they're saying things like, until 1972, it was almost all brokered conventions. And this is how it works. The parties aren't subject to democratic processes. The parties get to pick whoever they want as their nominee by whatever process they want as their nominee. And that's good, and that's how it should be. And my argument to rebut them is, when we had brokered conventions, we had them before the legal filing deadlines in the freaking states. The fact that the Democrats chose to stage their convention in late August after the filing deadline, meaning after the date at which it's no longer lawful to change on the ballot who the candidate even is, speaks to the fact that never in a million years did they believe that there could be a brokered convention. Because truly, if they elected a candidate at a brokered convention, it would be illegal to put them on ballots in like 1/3 of the states. The idea that the brokered convention is really still a thing. If you remember back to, I believe it was 2016, but it could have been 2020, it was 2016. It was certainly 2016 when Bernie had won a considerable number of delegates. And they were concerned that if Hillary didn't win the nomination in the first vote at their convention, she might not win it at all, and Bernie might become the nominee. And what was Nancy Pelosi's answer to that? She was the president of the DNC that particular year. And she came out and said, well, because we can no longer even have the idea of a brokered convention, because we couldn't even get on the ballot if we had brokered conventions, we're not going to count the votes at all. And instead, we're going to do an audible vote. And she said, and this, you can look this clip up, I swear I'm not making this up. She said, all those in favor of making Hillary Clinton the Democrat nominee for President of the United States, say aye. And you hear a resounding number of ayes. It's a resounding number, but it ain't all of them. Right? She says, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no, the ayes have it. She banged her gavel. And you're telling me that they still believe in the idea of a brokered convention? It is nonsense. It is a way of justifying what is clearly cheating on the basis of the Democrats in this election by pointing to a distant past that doesn't even exist anymore. And if it still existed, they would have had their convention in May or June like we always did back when you had brokered conventions.
But until more than half a century ago, that's what they did. So, come on, man.
That's exactly right.
Also, especially from the never Trump types, imagine a scenario where somehow Tim Scott wins the vote to be the Republican nominee, and then all the party elites get together and force Trump in instead. Are these people going to be defending that or are they going to be saying this is another coup? Right. Donald Trump is attacking democracy and so on.
Is Michelle Obama totally off the table at this point?
Under the table this late in the night.
Last week, I still thought, despite all the reports, I thought there was still a good chance Biden would stick it out. Didn't occur to me they'd just shove him into Rehoboth Beach and take it away from him. But I've been, from the beginning, a lot of Republicans have said it could be Michelle. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was a fantasy. When Obama didn't endorse right away, I thought, yikes, maybe. Yeah. But no, I simply think I don't think she'd be a good candidate anyway, but I think at this point it's too late.
I think that when they pushed Joe aside, they thought that they could possibly get Michelle in there because Michelle would win 48 states. But
I disagree.
I think that Joe Biden was sitting at his beach house, being driven out of the party, thinking to himself, which ones of these sons of bitches do I hate more? Kamala Harris, who has called me a racist and ridden my coattails into high office, or Barack Obama, who is forcing me out and stabbing me in the back. And he made a decision which one of them he hates more, and he endorsed Kamala in the letter with which he resigned his candidacy. And because he did that, he basically cut off any idea. Because you remember, in the 48 hours before Joe Biden resigned his candidacy, the DNC put out like a proposal for how to have an alternative kind of convention process where there would be numerous candidates, and there'd be these. Oprah Winfrey would host these roundtable discussions with them. But Joe says it's Kamala in his letter.
I don't agree with you about the super nature of Michelle's candidacy, but I did have that moment when Obama did not endorse Kamala, where I thought he's running home going, please, please, I want the powers.
Because Biden wrote Kamala's name, because Biden's aides wrote Kamala's name in that letter that they put his fake signature on and then took a picture of and released on X. Because of that, you will never have to find out how wrong you are about Michelle Obama.
The thing that bothered me the most about the potential Michelle candidacy is I don't care, the race or whatever, maybe she could win. I just thought I would then have to tell Jeremy that he was right on this thing that I dug my heels in. So it would kill me, like Joe.
Yeah.
This is a question from Matt Walsh. Matt, what events do you think occurred in the lives of these people who truly believe that white people are as racist without redemption? Is there a common denominator?
I mean, what occurred in their lives was just intense indoctrination and then they interpret things that are happening in their lives based on what they've been indoctrinated to believe already. So, for example, in that Race to Dinner, as you'll see in the film, there's a moment in the film at the dinner where all the women are invited to reveal moments in their lives when they were racist. And they all have examples ready to go, and they go around the table, and every example they give, it's like they were not being racist at all, just totally normal interactions that they had or whatever. But they've been conditioned to interpret all of those things, even their own actions, as racist. And even when they know that they don't actually have any hatred for non-white people, they know that in their own heart, but yet they still truly believe that somehow it's still racist, because this idea of racism has, of course, lost all meaning, and it's just been, in their minds, it has actually has nothing to do with what you consciously think about somebody else.
That's right. Sadly, the person asking the question probably thinks that they're saying, what has happened to these black people that makes them think white people hate them? But I think that the real answer is no. Most of this is driven by white women.
Yeah, well, but it's the same. But it's the same answer there too, because for the non-white people who believe that we live in a systemically racist culture and so on, and if you ask them to give examples of when they've been victims of racism, they'll probably have many on hand. And you hear this from the activist types, and many of their examples are just totally normal interactions. I mean, we just talked about Michelle Obama. She was infamous for this sort of thing. I remember she gave a tearful story once about at an ice cream shop or something, and someone cut in line, and she was first lady at this point, and she was resentful of having someone cut in line because she interpreted it as, well, why else would you not see me other than I'm a black person? Well, I was at Dunkin' Donuts 3 days ago, and someone cut in line in front of me, but I don't have that framework for understanding it. So for me, it was just, oh, this person's just being an asshole. But for someone like Michelle Obama, an activist type, they don't. That doesn't occur to them because everything is through this.
Do you remember at the supermarket, there was a story, someone asked her at the supermarket to reach up and get something off a shelf, and she was so offended by this. And I thought, sometimes people ask me for favors, too.
That happens to me in grocery stores. The funny thing in this book, this wonderful book, Morning After the Revolution by Nellie Bowles, she covers this, and one of the things she says about it is it creates a system where you don't really have to do anything for anybody. You just have to transform your inner life, which is what white women basically are into.
This next question is for Drew. Drew, are we ever going to get a release date for the Pendragon cycle? No. Ben, what are the odds that we actually get... They changed the question on me. What are the odds that we actually get to the bottom of the assassination attempt on President Trump?
I'm going to say that the odds are like 40%. And the reason is because we are seeing so little at this point. They unlocked the guy's phone using apparently evil Israeli technology. And then once they unlocked the phone using the evil Jew technology, apparently, they're still trying to discern what exactly was there because one of his phones is encrypted. We're hearing rumors about whether the explosives were preset, how they were built in his car. This is a very weird one. And remember, we're still years later. We still don't know, supposedly, why the largest mass shooting in American history took place, the Las Vegas shooting. And so the high possibility that they actually do know and that we never find out, that actually is pretty high. I will say that, again, I'm very anti-conspiracy as a general rule, but the behavior of the CIA and the FBI during the last 15 years alone is enough to make almost anybody a conspiracy theorist, or at least believe that there's a lot of information that we are never going to find out about stuff like this.
Last question from our Daily Wire Plus members. If you're not one, head over to Daily Wire Plus right now. Become a member. Use promo code FIGHT. Get 47% off of your annual membership. And to all of our members who are watching or wrote in with questions tonight, we sure do thank you. This question is, how did Matt get his film into theaters? Is there a concern that they may prevent it from showing in theaters?
Well, this question probably more for Jeremy because the great thing is I was on vacation when I found out that it was going to officially come out in theaters, so I was just relaxing and letting other people figure that out. I do think that one thing is that theaters, that they do want to make money, and so they see this as a film that people are going to want to see, and so that's why they're releasing it. I think is probably the easiest answer to that.
Yeah. The making of this film was a little bit contentious. Matt had a very bold idea. He did something that was different than probably outside the comfort zone of everybody in the building, myself included. When you do something really ambitious like this, not every part of it works exactly the way you think that it works. And so we had a lot of sort of creative disagreement as we brought the film to life. And as it turns out, all great art is born of conflict. Whenever you see somebody who gets to make exactly what they want to make, it's almost always garbage, right? Like, I mean, there are exceptions, but there aren't many exceptions. And so creative disagreement, creative conflict almost always improves the final product. What Matt has made here in the final form, I think, as I said before, is something truly unique, something that we've never seen anyone on the right do. And even on the left, people struggle to do it well. Something that can be very powerful, that can make a true difference in the way that people see this issue and this group of people who dominate this issue. So the idea of putting it in theaters was also kind of contentious because we started talking about putting it in theaters early in the process, and you're trying to decide, if you're me, you're trying to decide. It's a huge financial risk to put it in theaters. It's a huge brand risk, right? If the very first original piece of content that we put in theaters has to be something that we feel like really represents, that puts our best foot forward. But as the film sort of continued, as Justin Folk, our director, and Matt and the team, which includes, Sean Hampton, Matt's producer, Brian Hoffman, one of our creatives here, who was one of the writers on Lady Baller, several other people in the building who put enormous effort into this, as they continued to refine and continued to do the work. And we were still creating scenes. Like one of the best, I mean, truly mind-blowing scenes in this movie only came into existence in the weeks before we finalized the film, because there was so much work to make this something important and something hilarious and something entertaining. And as that kind of came in focus, I think we all agreed we have to take our shot. We have to see if we can meet audiences in theaters. And the reason for that is theaters are one of the few places remaining where the left hasn't completely rigged the scorekeeping system. And it's important for us to be in places where they actually have to keep score, where they actually have to acknowledge our successes. Now, the risk is, if you don't succeed, that'll be on display, right? People will see that the film didn't perform at the level we had hoped it would. But if we do, that will also be reported. That will also be on display. And one of the things that the left has done to us more and more over the years is they hide all of the places where we win. They stop counting or stop publishing the results in all the places where we dominate. And we have to go compete. To compete, you have to put points on the board. Also, we want to reach the broadest audience possible with this film. You saw the good that was done in the world by What is a Woman. The more people saw that film, the more change happened across the country on the issue, particularly of the transing of minors. But I think sort of philosophically on the trans issue much more broadly as well. So we wanted to be in the broadest release possible. And we worked with new partners outside the business, and we worked internally with Dave Coleman, who's one of our, a lifelong friend of mine and one of our great Daily Wire creative employees who was instrumental in helping us build Bent Key. And he went to work to figure out how to get this film into theaters. And as it turns out, there is an actual opening for great conservative art in theaters. And the reason is because the streaming platforms have so dramatically reduced the number of films that are considered for theatrical release. And so there's an inventory of screens. It doesn't mean that it's easy to get into theaters. Certainly doesn't mean it's easy to succeed in theaters, but it does make me think that there is an opportunity in theaters that really hasn't existed for conservative filmmakers in our lifetime. I mean, you've seen a few exceptions. Dinesh D'Souza, very famously, has been able to make a run in theaters. But right now, you're really seeing more content be able to make its way. You've got people like Angel Studios, the Irwin brothers. You've got our friend Mark Joseph's Reagan biopic, which is going to come out here in the next couple of weeks. You're seeing this move by conservatives to avail themselves of the theater because this opening's been created by the streamers. And how did we do it? We did it the same way we've done everything in the history of the Daily Wire. We've done it the same way that Trump could become the 47th president, by doing the hard work, by doing the little things every day, putting one foot in front of the other, daring. I mean, that's a big part of the movie. Matt dares in this movie in a way you've never seen anyone dare in a film. We dare to make a film like this. We dare to make this kind of content. We dare to make our children's content. We dared to go pursue theaters. And in this case, we've succeeded. To your question, is there a risk that the theaters won't carry it? We're past that point. The theaters have, the three major chains have all agreed to carry the film. And could they pull the rug out from under us? I suppose that's possible. We have no reason to think that's going to happen. They've been good partners so far. They want audiences to come to theaters. And I think that there's still a desire from Americans to go to theaters. If Americans aren't going to theaters anymore, it's because the kind of content that's being offered to us just isn't the kind of content that gets us off of our couch and in our car. I think Am I Racist is going to be the exception. It's worth you going to see. Tickets go on sale in just over 2 weeks. You can get tickets right now at dailywire.com for our live show at the Ryman coming up on August 14th, and you can still avail yourself of that promo code FIGHT to become a member today with 47% off. There are so many big things that we're doing. We're doing them with your help, and we hope that we're good representatives of you as we do it. I know you're going to love Am I Racist? And that's it. We'll see you guys on August 14th when we come to you live from the Ryman Auditorium. Good night.